You're listening to Symposium, a year-round conference in the arts, brought to you by Pipeline Artists. Welcome, everybody. You haven't missed anything. Doug and I are just chit-chatting while we're waiting for...
No, I think we should tease them and say they've missed so much so far. And they've...
Oh my God, we talked. It's all over. You missed the whole hour.
That's right.
We're out of time. This is Back to the Future. Okay, now we're going to rewind and go back in time and start the webinar. People are from all over the place, Doug. Wisconsin, San Francisco.
I just saw
Rio
Manteca.
Grande.
Come on.
Yeah.
How many people know Manteca?
Louisiana. Look at this. You're a popular guy. Welcome to our one-on-one with Doug Richardson. And Doug and I have been friends for a long time, going back to early Twitter days. And just so you know, Doug is the writer of Die Hard 2, Bad Boys, Hostage, and he's also an author of novels. What was the first novel you wrote?
Dark Horse.
Dark Horse. And now he's got the Lucky Dey series, and he's done traditional publishing, self-publishing, writing screenplays, selling a spec. He also, too, fun fact, he was the first one to sell a spec screenplay for 6 figures, correct?
No.
What? Weren't you?
7.
You and your partner?
7 figures.
7 figures. Okay. Hello. What was I thinking? 7. It's the end of the day
6
for me.
6 figures is all. That's old
6
hat.
is nothing.
That's why everyone's here. 6 figures
That's
is
right.
old hat. 6 figures
7
is
figures.
almost WJ minimum now. So,
I know. But can you imagine me the first one to do that? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk about screenwriting, about novel writing, about branching out to different mediums, about old Hollywood, new Hollywood, all that kind of stuff. So first,
Everything but the Oscars.
Yeah, we no need to talk about the Oscars.
Exactly. I haven't seen all the films yet. So I'm just
Nor
barely
have I.
catching up.
Nor have I.
Yeah.
So Doug, when I first met you, one of the things that I really appreciated about you, and don't blush, is that you are very generous with your time and very helpful. There was a time.
Let me turn on the anti-blush filter.
That's right. There was a time when I was working on a script and I flew out to Doug's place, and he basically locked me in his writer cabin. And I'm going to have to share that link with you guys in the recording of the lessons that I learned from him, because it was about character introduction and some really cool stuff that he taught me. He's very generous with his time, hence why he's agreeing to do this. So,
very generous with you.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Because you're the only person in the world who calls me Die Hard Doug, by the way. I don't want anyone here to be thinking like, oh, he's known as Die Hard Doug. No, only to Jeanne am I Die Hard Doug. No one calls me that.
Yeah, I do call him that. I don't know. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. It sounds good, right? So when you first got into screenwriting, I just want people, because there's a lot of people here who have been at this for a while and trying to break in, and other people who are just starting, and who knows who else is here. But
people who weren't born yet when I was broke in.
Right. So what do you think are the biggest differences in the industry between then and now?
Oh,
going for a hard-hitting question right out of the gate.
The biggest difference is the development process, or lack of development. In Hollywood, they don't develop so much anymore. Mm-hmm. And they don't really know how to develop. And, there used to be these people called D girls, which is, someone laughed at the other day when I brought it up, and it was mostly called D girls because most of the development people in town were women who would be working for producers and studios and such. And a lot of them were just, some of them were good, but some of them were great. And they were great story editors, and they were out there finding talent, developing talent. It's by the way, it's the same thing in the book world as well right now. They're not as much into developing talent as in they want to find talent and they want you to be fully cooked ready to go, ready to sell, right for the marketplace. They'd like the work to be done. And the other thing is now I think they would call them aggregators, but I always called them quantifiers. It's more about the people reading your script. There's that in the Bill Goldman book, which is still a great book. I highly recommend people read it, Adventures in the Screen Trade. One of the first things he says in it is, when people pick up your script to read, they don't want to like your script. They want to love your script, because if they love your script, then they're going to start passing it up the ladder. And that's the watermark you got to, that I always tried to hit. But now they're not so much, they want to love it, but they want to love it for different reasons. They're all kind of quantifying or aggregating based on how they view the material. Does it add up to something that fits their criteria? And that adding everything up is from the first word they read from you all the way to present day Netflix, which is, they've got a metric there that they're, when they buy something or want to do something, they're data crazy and they want to know that it fits their model, so that's the difference now. And it's not that you should write anymore. I still try and write, and I still think everyone should write for someone to love it, because if they don't have that emotional reaction to it, it's probably not going to go anywhere. But it also has to fit what the aggregators sort of want, at that particular, with that particular buyer or platform.
And I know when you started, there was still studio, you were one of the last studio writers that got hired, right?
Yep.
And a lot of spec sales were happening then too. So, so in pitching now, is it a lot different? Now having things packaged, and it's not just you and your idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's still you and your idea. You just have to be and you still need to be the person selling the idea, or in the room telling them they want to feel before they go in. And this hasn't changed, that person is telling them the story that they like so much, as someone who also can deliver it, because they want to make sure that there's a lot of people who are great with ideas, but they're not good writers, and there's a lot of really good writers who aren't really good with ideas, as well. But they still want that. But as far, I got to tell you, I'm not been in pitches in a while. I'm sort of up a bit on what people do. Is it a good one-liner going in? Is it a good one-liner that gets me the meeting? But at the end of the day, if you get in the room with them, what hasn't changed is what they really want to do. They want to like the story, but they kind of want to like you as well. It's like any interview you're in, because it's kind of an interview, unless they're the people who already know you, which means you're already halfway there. It's like, do I want to work with this person? And that's like, any job. So in that regard, once you're in the room, it helps that they like you, and that they feel you're someone they can work with. It also helps if you're really quick on your feet in the room with story and with character, in case they like the idea enough to kind of start going down the road and developing it with you, or talking about it, or breaking it down.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious. We all know you wrote those big films, Die Hard 2, Bad Boys Hostage. What made you first decide to write a novel?
My decision that I didn't want to direct. Because that's the direction that everyone, most Hollywood writers are sort of marching in. When you're going to get, and that's why I started. I wanted to be a director when I went to film school. I was that kid who wanted to be, the next, George Lucas or Steven Spielberg or whomever. Or in my case, I wanted to be Sidney Lumet. But we were planning on having children, and I already had enough experience, at least at that moment, with the business that I kind of didn't see many film directors. I have friends who are film directors. So, and I've had this discussion with them too. It's not a good recipe for fathering children, because you really aren't home hardly at all. You miss a lot. And when we were expecting young children, when we were expecting our first child and such, I was sort of like, or we were planning it. I was just thinking, I want to be around for that part. Mm-hmm. So maybe further down the road. So it sort of got my directing yen out, all that want for, to be at the center of everything. Because when you're writing a novel, you're not just the writer, you're the director, you're the actor, you're the set decorator, you're the, you're the prop master, you're the editor, you're doing everything, which is kind of what directing is. And once I did that yen to direct and or control the entire process went away. So, and then I was like, oh, I like that. Now I don't have to go direct. I have a place to go scratch that itch versus just going away for a year and a half or two and living in some ungodly place, being the center of all chaos.
So how are your feelings about being a screenwriter and having done, writing scripts and writing novels and going back and forth? Like, does it mess with your head sometimes to switch back and forth in the different mediums, or do you just work on one project at a time? And
I kind of I tend to be like, a unilinguist when it comes to writing. I'm good at, I can write one thing at a time and have meetings and talk about other stuff as long as I take really good notes. Can't write two things at the same time, very well. I've tried it. I haven't done well at it. I always like to joke about my friend Mark Frost, who at one point in his career, he had the novel he was writing in the morning before noon, and then the screenplay on assignment he was writing before dinner, and then after dinner he was working on the television pilot, and he was doing this for weeks on end, and I couldn't, I didn't have the bandwidth to do that. Switching back and forth between them has gotten very, very easy. It wasn't so easy at first, but now I sort of get the gear to sort of put it into and don't struggle with it as much. It certainly makes, every time I finish one style and go back to the other, it feels like the other has already become easier because I've been away working, on the craft elsewhere. I can't explain why necessarily. It just makes me feel a little bit more elastic.
Yeah. I want to dive into some of the questions that people have, just because I want to make sure we're able to address them. So Jeff asks, I'm close to having my first script optioned. What kind of things do I want to be aware of in the contract? Like, how many requests do I need to make for an option, or do I save these for the formal script purchase?
No, first of all, your option generally should be, if you have a good attorney or if it's done by a big production company, when they first option your screenplay, they're optioning it all the way through to production. That's how most contracts are laid out. We're going to option it for, say $25,000, and we'll get it for 6 months to a year for whatever the option is, $5,000, $1, whatever that is. And at some point when we choose to go forward with it as a movie, you will get paid, a larger amount of money. If you share credit on it, eventually you will get a sole credit bonus. You might get a shared credit bonus, but it's usually standard contracts. They're blocked out all the way through to sequels and television rights and all sorts of other things. So if it's just an option, as in we want to option it for a while and control the rights to it, that happens too. It's probably a production company that can't really afford the attorney to do a proper, so I hope for you that it's a little bit bigger of an option or more of a commitment, because you want that option. It's easy to option something for a few bucks and then control it for a while, but you want them to have as much skin in the game as well. And again, if it's your first thing and it's their first thing, there's a lot of, are we doing it together? Are they asking for free rewrites? Is that part of the deal? If you're not a member of the guild yet, they can do a lot. They can option it and ask you for 3 or 4 rewrites or endless rewrites, which you may or may not want to do based upon your comfort level, or how much you trust them, or how much you're hoping to bet on yourself that this will turn into a movie. If they don't do the contract all the way through to purchase and production and all that jazz, it does give you more leverage if it does go forward. So there's that. If they haven't made a deal with you for the actual purchase of the rights of the material to go make the film, let's just say no one's attached, and there's the benefit to that. It's a small company and they've given you a small option. The upside is all of a sudden Jason Statham wants to do it, and it's a $50 million plus movie, and they haven't secured the full rights from you. That gives you a lot of leverage going into the second bit of negotiating, and that you'll need a lawyer for. A good one.
Lawyers are a good thing. Yeah, good lawyers are a good thing. Mary May Ma is a filmmaker based in Los Angeles, and she's asking, how do you find inspiration to keep writing, and how is your approach on co-writing? Inspiration first.
Where the inspiration comes from, I don't know. It's still there. I have more stories I want to tell than I think time to write them. So I still have stories in my head that I haven't broken yet, that have been in there for 20 years that I still every so often try and toy with. So I don't know when I'll tire of it. I might sometime, but I'm still inspired to get, it's a great job, by the way. It's not a bad way to spend your day in your own head, making your own movies or telling stories in your head. So it's a pretty good job, and that's pretty inspirational as well.
Before we get to the co-writing question,
yeah,
it might be helpful to share what your writing routine is.
That is no different. I mean, it's changed over the years because of being a parent, and now my kids are out of the house in general and stuff like that. But I'm like your basic get up in the morning, and my best time is usually in the morning, and I have my way into my writing process in the morning, and finally it's time to kind of get down to it. For me, it's very important to have figured out the day before. Like, for example, at some point this evening, I will take some time at some point. It could be 2 minutes, it could be an hour, to kind of lay out in my head what I'm going to write tomorrow. Not specifically, but enough of an outline. So when I sit down in the morning and my mind's supposedly fresh, that there's like, oh wait, I haven't figured out what I'm going to write today. And then I end up being stuck and sort of not, doing it. So that's generally my routine. And it's usually 6 days a week. Cause I just find if I don't get some work done on Saturday, sometimes it's 7, but if I don't get some work done on Saturday, on Monday, I seem to be a little lost. Just to keep the rhythm. And that's my routine, whether it's a novel or a movie. And it changes if you're in production. It changes because suddenly when you're in production, especially when it comes to a movie, if you're on a movie, there's deadlines. So those hours change. And when you're in production, that's a whole nother beast. The movie is whipping you. So you sort of know what you need to do to get done. The movie's a big bad boss, and it's cracking the whip saying, this needs to get done tomorrow. they're not going to have anything to shoot tomorrow if you don't fix this now. So,
Yikes.
and that's not a fun place to be.
No,
but it's good pressure.
Yeah.
Co-writing.
Yeah, co-writing was the other part of that question.
I haven't done a lot of it, and it hasn't worked out well. I can really see how it works out with other people, and I love the way their energy, when you find that right partner, jibes. It becomes a sort of marriage. My one marriage to my wife is enough, I think. Or I really, really just value that alone time with me. I love collaborating. Collaborating's great. Great director, great actors, great, producers and stuff like that. If you got a really good collaborator, that is a lot of fun. I love collaborating. Co-writing, I haven't figured out how to do it, or maybe I don't want to figure out. At this point, I'm such an old dog. I'm not really that interested at some point.
I've done it a few times with different people, and it's very challenging. I've written articles about it for Script Magazine when I was over there. But there's lots of different processes of how you can handle that. Sometimes people, like the Coen brothers, one of them will write a scene and then hand it to the other one, and then they have to elevate it, just keep pushing the envelope, and they go back and forth and they each try to push it. Some people have it so one person writes the whole first draft, the next person comes in on the second draft. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but I would say it's hard to break in as a writing team, because anything you do as a team, it's like you're in this little black box and nobody knows who did what. So you can only advance as a team. So if you write the script and you break out and now you're this team and you don't want to work with that person anymore, it's almost like you have to start over again, because nobody knows who wrote what,
Yeah, it's kind of I sort of got the one time not the one time, but my first co-writing experience was that $1 million script. And wow, it was great. It was a lot of pop. It was $1 million, a lot of press and stuff. But I was already established as a writer. And so there was that, when do I get back to write myself? And also there was a lot of strain it put, I got a lot of attention for it. And so did my partner, but it destroyed our friendship.
Yeah.
So, and that was something that's a much harder thing to swallow, in your life. And so that was, it's a form of heartbreak that I don't know if I want to experience again. I did it one other time, and it was, there's also that give and take. I don't know what the give and take is, who's going to do more, who's going to do less, who's going to do the actual writing, who's the idea person. There's a lot. It's a marriage in that there's got to be a lot of trust and give, I think, and where it works, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's definitely a marriage, and get a contract.
Oh yeah. Get married.
Or just get married. Okay. So Kim, she's in Laurel Canyon. Does it make sense to adapt one's own novel into a screenplay or streaming series? What is the best way to get a project in front of producers? For a manuscript or script with the same milieu and demographic as Daisy Jones and the Six?
Wow, there's a lot of questions in that.
A lot of questions in there. So basically boiling it down, because I don't want to get too specific about somebody's one project so that we can make sure we hit other things, but keep advice general.
Yeah, let's just go a bit backwards. I mean, Daisy Jones and the Six, I don't know how one goes about selling that. It's just like selling any other thing right now. Is it something they want? Is it fit what they want? Are you guys a good fit together? Hopefully you've got an agent and a representative helping you get into those places, and they're sussing out who's looking for what and when. As far as something as specific as that, adapting, I haven't done this yet. I've definitely done a lot of adapting, and I've adapted other people's work. I've adapted my own work. I've adapted my own work faithfully. I've adapted my own work unfaithfully, all in service of what would make the best movie. I haven't adapted my work on spec, which I think is kind of what you're asking. You've got a book, you should think you're adapting it. I mean, it's hard. I always advise people, if you can turn it into a book, there's so many good reasons to write it as a book first, because of the intellectual property element to it. It is yours. It is yours how you wanted to see it. It is yours originally. And however it ends up, at least it was yours at that point, and it will always be yours. There will never be a concern about who sullied it or, who added what to it. And so I always suggest that. Yet at the same time, people in Hollywood are really lazy. They're the worst reading audience on the planet. In that, again, they're all aggregators, they're all quantifiers. They're not reading for pleasure. They're reading because it's their job, and they're reading because their boss needs you to read it, or they're reading it for a client, or they're reading it for all these different reasons. And they don't read all the way through. So, I mean, if they like something, so having it in script form, it's much easier for them to read. So in that regard, you may get it read more as a screenplay. Then again, is it more potent to them? I think as a book, it's more potent to them if it's been published and if there's sales behind it. So in that respect, it might be better to adapt it and then give it to lazy Hollywood. I did have a manager once, I haven't had a lot of luck with him, who was all gung ho. And I just, I'd finished a novel and I'd sent it to him, and, it wasn't getting read by him. And it's like, aren't you the gung ho manager who just wanted to sign me? And his reaction was, well, it's a whole book, man. How long? I should have a long time to read that. It's a whole book versus like a screenplay, which you can read 15 pages of and then skim if you don't like it or something like that. So I think that's told me a lot. So whatever you need to do to get it in front of somebody who can say yes and move it forward, I'm all for doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a really good log line still applies in the novel world. And if you don't know anything about screenwriting, a really good synopsis, so somebody could read like a 2-page synopsis. And
right. As long as there's a script behind it, you don't want to be running around trying to sell a synopsis, because that's a license for them.
No, I mean, if it's a novel. No, right. Yeah. I mean, if it's a novel
or a novel as well. I mean, even book agents, they only want to read 40 pages and the rest as a synopsis. That's it. They just want to know that you can write it and it's a story.
Yeah. I want to buzz through some of these because we're already halfway through. But one other thing, which I'm sure a lot of other people want to know the answer to the question, is the little question within her question was about getting projects in front of producers, just in general.
About how?
Yeah.
Any way you possibly can. Specifically, it's so much better to get them in front of them through an agent or a manager. If you have a relationship with somebody, that happens, but the way the system is set up here, unfortunately, is there's a filtering process, and the filtering process put forth in Hollywood, our agents and managers are the filtering process for buyers, and they look to those agents and managers to sort of, suss through all the garbage, as they would call it, to send them the better stuff. So, whatever you can do to get an agent or a manager and get repped, I think should be primary for you. That's someone who's got a legitimate shingle that they can then send out your work under. Yeah.
And there's a session that we did, what TV and film industry really want. I think it's a latest symposium podcast that I just put out. It's a really great listen. There's a manager and an agent on the panel, and but one of them doesn't do accept cold queries. She only works off referral, but the manager has no problem accepting cold queries for people emailing him. And when he gets a query, he basically just wants to see the log line. So do a little research of managers and agents and see what they want. But no one ever died hearing no, so give it a shot. Somebody's thanking you for Bad Boys 1.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
No one ever thanks me for Bad Boys 1, not even Michael Bay.
He wants to ask whether or not you were consulted regarding Bad Boys since the first and the best one, since you wrote the first and best one. And would you ever want to be part of the franchise now?
I'm very grateful for the franchise. Extraordinarily grateful for the franchise. So it's been really great for me. I was briefly involved in Bad Boys 2 at one point when Michael Bay stepped away. Mm-hmm. And Michael Bay and I did not get along very well. Let me just put it that way. And I turned out I wasn't the first writer. I was the first writer who didn't get along with Michael Bay, and the rest of them didn't get along with him either. But that being said, there was a brief moment when Michael stepped away and Will and Jerry had me back in the fold, and it was exciting. And then Michael Bay stepped back in, and there was no need to even call me to say, "You're out." I knew it. So it's fun to see where it goes. It's glad. Yeah. I'm very, very happy to see it sort of live on. Mm-hmm. In whatever form it's in, and those two guys are still together, which is great.
Yeah. Valerie asks, how do you decide which format you're going to write a story in? Screenplay, TV show, novel, all that. We're going to come up with an idea. How do you
decide what to name your kid? It's almost like that. It's like, say this is a book, see this is a movie. It's kind of what feels right. I mean, my first book, I felt it was something. I mean, stories still come to me as movies. I grew up watching movies. So in that respect, maybe that's how I look at everything. But some of them feel like the idea lends itself more towards a novel, and there might be more places to go with it. And some of it is there's some stuff I think I prefer writing books now because it's so delicious, because you can write, there's so much more frequency in a book, as far as there's so many more frequencies which you can write in. Movies are sight and sound. You have to write for sight and sound. Mm-hmm. There's some leeway that writers have for the writerly things in especially the early drafts of screenplays that you can use to sell the draft and stuff like that. But when you get down to the nitty gritty and start actually making the movie, you're writing picture and you're writing sound. You're not writing thought. The thought must be in the words that the actors can interpret or the director can interpret. You're not writing, inner dialogue unless there's an inner dialogue in a movie, and that's usually sucks anyway. So you don't want to do that. So it's, that's the fun part about books. And I would choose, books over screenplays now, just because there's so much more depth. But the other one's a lot of fun too.
Was it the first time you decided to write a book? I mean, this is, I think, the thing that is the challenge. I'm a huge fan of screenwriters taking your scripts that aren't going anywhere, if you think they would make a good novel, of giving it a shot. Like, you already have the story.
Me too.
Like, try writing as a novel.
I agree.
But like that first thing, picking the POV and all that stuff that screenwriters, we don't have to think about, and that moment when you realize I can crawl inside their head and talk about what they're thinking. And like, we can't do that in screenwriting.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
it's almost like cheating.
It Yeah.
As a screenwriter, it does feel like cheating because you can, because again, you're so used to, I wrote for, movies for quite some time. And I wrote screenplays for quite some time before I attempted to write a book, that it was sort of like I understood the language and what I was allowed to do and what I wasn't allowed to do. And suddenly it's like, a lot of movies are like, you got to make a right turn. You got to make that right turn. So here comes the right turn because it's a movie,
Right.
And suddenly I'm going, oh, I can make a left turn here. And I can make another left and I can go straight. And then I can wheel it around right now, finally, when the story has to wheel that way, as long as it's compelling, So the same thing matters. It needs to be compelling no matter what. But, there's, again, so much more latitude.
Yeah. Somebody asks, where you Die Hard 2, was it an original concept you came up with or that was transformed to fit into the Die Hard universe? Or did you write the script with the sequel in mind the whole time?
It's a long story. I blogged about it. Maybe
I'll put the blog in
place to kind of put it up because it's one of my favorite stories about the smartest man in show business, at least at that time. The short version is it was based on a book by Walter Wager called 58 Minutes. And I was hired to adapt 58 Minutes into a movie, into a screenplay. But I was secretly, it was a nudge wink from Larry Gordon saying, you're really writing Die Hard 2. Just the studio doesn't know it yet. And we can get this rolling a lot faster. And he was right about everything. Because when I delivered it, the studio asked for Die Hard, and suddenly Larry Gordon said, here it is. And then it was Die Hard. So that's how it was, sort of a it's very loose adaptation of the novel which Fox owned. And then it was just sort of like put in position just perfectly by a master producer at that time who knew exactly how to frame it for the studio at the right time and not have to deal with developing Die Hard 2. Because as soon as it becomes Die Hard 2, it's just a big giant bake off, as they call it in showbiz, and it could take forever.
Yeah, so that's really smart. Don is asking, he sent a script to a management agency today after querying them yesterday. So that's awesome. But his question is, should a screenwriter start off by getting a manager?
It's neither or. It's any rep, whether it's an agent or a manager, it doesn't matter. Someone who has the connectivity to the buyers and has a willingness, a belief in you as a client, as someone who's going to make them money. They're not looking to you like, wow, you're talented, I want to sell you. They're looking upon you as are you a little piece of gold that I can wax into a bigger piece of gold? That's what they're trying to do. And they're looking at you like, I might, and whether it's an agent or a manager, some you're paying 15%, some you're paying 10% to someone who's getting your stuff out there into the hands of buyers and selling it. That's all that matters. And eventually you may need both. You may only need one.
Jenna Avery. Hi, Jenna.
Hey, Jenna.
I know, right? She goes, she's asking what's next for you writing wise. Will we see Lucky Dey again?
I don't know. I don't know if we'll see him again. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. I mean, it could happen. It could not. I have a couple of books in the pipeline. Hopefully will be out there beating on publishers' doors soon with. It's a standalone. It's not a Lucky Dey book. And then another standalone that's also in front of me that I'm trying to get my way through. So that's what's next.
Are you going to keep, because you started off traditional publishing and then switched over to self-publishing, are you going to keep for these new ones? Are you going to maybe try traditional?
I don't know if I'm going to want to go, the self-publishing world is a really fickle world that continues to change. as satisfying as it is, and it can be somewhat financially, satisfying as well if you work it right. I don't know. The book world's also changing at the same time. We'll just have to see, where I think the best place for the work lands. So.
Yeah. I'm going through, by the way, FYI, people in the audience, I'm going through the list, starting with the ones who have thumbs up, so that I know multiple people are asking that question. So that's why you might see me skipping around.
There you go. So you're being graded on your questions, people.
No, how many people want the answer to it,
unless someone gives your question a thumbs up, then it doesn't make the cut.
Well, it might make the cut. I'm just prioritizing.
It's like the social media universe of, do you like my post? Please give me a like.
None of that stuff. No pressure here. I'm just trying to hit the ones that most people want the answers to. Outside of your own work, kidding. What is one of your favorite screenplays? And can you provide us with maybe the top 3 reasons why it's your favorite, or a few reasons why? Do you have a favorite script?
I don't have a favorite script. I have favorite movies, because that's what scripts were meant to be. I think the people to ask what your favorite script is are producers and the like, because they're the ones who are out there reading a gazillion scripts trying to find the best ones. I've read a number of them in my life, and not a lot, because I'm busy writing. Sometimes I'm reading them as something. Do I want to rewrite them? As a job or something like that. I will say the original. The name, it's escaping me now. The original draft of Empire of the Sun, before Steven Spielberg got a hold of it, when Harold Becker was going to direct it. This is really dating me, but I was very young. Scripts don't make me cry. I cried with that one. That was really, I was very moved. So I would say that one. And then early in my career, before I was in high school, someone slipped me a copy of Sam Peckinpah's Wild Bunch script. And that's kind of what got me, him and I think Waldo Salt. Did I get that right? Anyway, it was Waylon Green, but I was in high school and I was like, that was a favorite too. I read that a number of times. Because I couldn't even see the movie yet, but I got to read the script.
When did you start reading scripts? Probably early, because you already lived in the area?
I only got to read a script because I knew someone who gave me a copy of it and knew I was interested in movies. And that was the only script that was available. Until then, I didn't start reading. I didn't seek out scripts at all to read. I know a lot of people do, and I think there's a lot to be garnered from them, especially those people who read scripts who are interested in scripts that have recently been sold, or scripts that were made into movies, as if there's some sort of secret in them. I never was that way. I was when I watch a movie, I imagine what the shooting script looked like. That's kind of I can kind of picture it in my head, and so I always kept the movie I wanted to see, as the script I wanted to read.
Lynette asks if you have an opinion about the Blacklist site. I don't think she's talking about the Blacklist, like the list that comes out. I'm talking about the Blacklist site, which is where writers can submit their work.
Absolutely no opinion whatsoever about it. I know very little about it, so I wish I could help you there.
I do hear people saying that they go and I do hear some managers saying they go and peruse the Blacklist. I haven't looked over there in a while, so
wherever you can go, however you can go, whatever you need to do, whatever subterfuge you need to engage in to get a manager or a literary agent, it's a yes to, short of breaking the law, at least in a felony way. because there's no rules. There are no rules. And so, you know, whatever gets you that look, if it's on the blacklist or some other site, you know, whatever gets you that look and that person who's willing to go out and rep you, that's a start. And by the way, as soon as someone else decides to rep you, everyone else goes, oh, wait, should I have? I said no. Ooh, maybe I should think twice about that person. Suddenly makes them more interested in you.
Just like dating.
Exactly. It's a very competitive business, and agents aren't that high on the totem pole, and they're the kings of second guessing themselves. They can all tell you about the project and the client they said no to, and you know that ended up, you know, that script ended up getting bought and sold and made into a big hit movie, and they go.
Yep. And so back to your answer of whatever gets you attention also applies to somebody who's asked about competitions. And that would apply to that too. Like I can tell you from, yes, I do work for Pipeline. And so we have a lot of competitions, Script Pipeline, all that stuff. But I will tell you as also a writer, one of the recommendations I would make in terms of what competitions are worthwhile, go talk to every competition usually has a list up on their website of the finalists. So reach out to those finalists of the different competitions and say, what did they do for you? What was your experience? What was, you know, find out from the writers who have become finalists to see what they actually did for them on the other side. That is usually the best way because it's, I don't know, writers telling writers, like it's, I don't know, it's just
any place you can get feedback on your work to where it can become better and more and better noticed. That's kind of what I hear about, you know, competitions and stuff. You get notes back and you figure out, you know, how well you're doing based upon, you know, the competitive world that you're in. It can be kind of a long way around to getting a rep. But if that's your only route, then do it.
Let's see. I've seen several
there's
projects.
This one too. There's this one.
What is that
considering I saw all the names of all these people as they were signing in. Competitions are great and stuff, especially for, you know, but nothing substitutes you living in Los Angeles. Nothing.
Oh, the East Coast question.
Just nothing substitutes living in showbiz land. It's where the business is. It's where people work. It's where they network. It's where, you know, I mean, we talked about Bad Boys. If I wasn't available at the moment I got the phone call that day to come sit down with Jerry and talk about Bad Boys, I wouldn't have gotten that gig. They needed someone today, now. And someone said, can you be at Disney, you know, by 4:00 to meet with Jerry? And I go, sure. And no idea what it was about, but they needed a writer now, not yesterday. And, you know, I mean, and that's an extreme example, but, you know, they want to know that you're here because you're committed. You know, it's kind of hard to sell that writer who lives in bumfuck, excuse me. It is a great term. It's a harder pull for that agent to sign that person if they don't feel that person's going to move to LA. They want to send that person out on meetings. They want them to be available. They want, you know, you got to be really good to not live in LA. Really good. That's why I live in LA, because I'm not that good.
Yeah, I do hear that a lot. I do hear the one thing I hear people saying, managers saying a lot, is it shows that you're really serious and that this is really what you want to do.
Everything's a test out here. Everything is a test.
Yeah.
And one of those tests is like those filters they make agents and managers. That's a very quick test for someone. Oh, they're not committed to being in LA. Why am I going to sign you? You know?
Okay. Another question that a couple of people have thumbs up is, what type of scripts do agents love the most? Like, what are those like main things is it like when you were talking about that emotional reaction you get when you read something
No.
that, what are your thoughts on
I have no clue for that. It depends on the agent and who they think they're trying to sell last week. An agent gets out of a meeting, the agency will sit down and they'll have a meeting with representatives, with a representative from a studio or a buyer, or a TV production company. We're looking for buddy cop scripts here. We really think it's time for a buddy cop show. You know what that agent's favorite project is? He wants to be the first one to get that buddy cop script, pilot or whatever to the buyer who just told them 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then he hates that script when they find out they're not buying it the next minute. It's that fickle. I wish I could say, what do they really like? Other than they want commercial, they want gold. They want something that tells them, I can sell this. Dang it. I can get my client into it. Or we have an actor. We just signed an actress and she wants to do a pilot this year. And they want things that actress can then take to that production company and that studio to make a show out of.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want something else the next day.
Yeah.
If you try and
are you all depressed yet?
second guessing this business as a writer, when you have to have lead time, you got to figure it out, you got to write it down, you got to rewrite it, you got to get it right shape to get in front of everybody. There's so much lead time that that's involved in that. It's not worth it. You need to write something that you love, that you think is awesome, and it's going to get them and get you a response. And you got to write something else after that, and something else after that.
I'm going to ask you this question, then I'm going to tell them a lesson I learned from you before I let you answer the question. As a writer, what cliche do you absolutely hate to read? I just want to tell you one of the best lessons I ever learned about writing was from this man right here, because I had to write a scene about a kidnapping. And he said to me, I want you to write the scene in a way we've never seen anybody kidnap before, and something completely different, something so different. It's got to be really original and unique. Go. And just always thinking about when you're writing a scene that we've seen many times. How many times have we seen people kidnapped? How many times do you see people, in certain situations? But if you're always thinking, how can I do this differently? That's going to pop off the page. That always gives you a leg up. So
that's a better answer than anything I'm gonna come up with, which are what are cliches that I hate. Because the list is too long.
Yeah.
But I think, I think your answer is better than anything I would have come up with, other than just, take the cliche, figure out why the cliche is a cliche, why it works, why we're even thinking of the cliche, why I need the cliche. Okay, it's a cliche. I need this in my moment, in my movie, in my story. I need this thing to happen. And oh my gosh, it's such a cliche. I've seen it 1,000 times. But it's a widget that serves a story that I really need. So dissect it, figure out what makes it work, and come up with a new way to do it that I haven't seen before.
Yeah. Somebody asks, how did you get the production company to pay 7 figures for a screenplay? Can you tell the story about what led to that significant payment?
It's a long story, but that's also some of my blog. So I'm going to just assign it to Jeannie to make.
Okay. And
I'll help her find it. That's in there, because she used to publish them when she was at another site. It was a time, there are times in Hollywood when IP is big. They want to buy a property that exists in another universe, comic book, novel, toy, something, and they want to make a movie out of it. And then it goes into another period where they're buying pitches only. They want to hear stories, and they want to match writers with stories. And there's a periods of time where they're buying spec scripts. And it was during a spec script boom when auctioning spec scripts seemed to be, the studios were competing for a lot of spec scripts. And the only way you would get a number like that is if you had a lot of competition and more than one buyer bidding up against each other, or a lot of buyers in the case of that one script, that there were so many buyers and there was such a rush to get it. And some really good agenting, obviously, which is just sales, to get someone to step up and make an offer to take it off the table. And that's what Disney did. They stepped up. It was amusing because it was the cheapest studio in town at that time. Disney was known as being the cheapest place. And they stepped up, and which also one of the things that made it newsworthy, because they stepped up and they took the project off the market within 48 hours of it going out the door. And that's how a lot of those big high dollar spec scripts were sold. And then, that period since then has gone away and come back a number of times. It's cyclical. So it helped that I was entirely at the, right time to come out with a pop screenplay.
And I will find that link and put it in the recording email. I've seen several projects that got screen deals before they were published. How does that happen?
Books. Yeah, it's the same version. It used to be every studio had someone at a major publishing house who worked for them. And a lot of times it was a secret, and they would just simply take projects that they felt that they might be able to get a bonus from, and that was pre-publication. It was just pretty much, it was well known for a long time, and it probably still exists. If your book is at a publisher and they're going to publish it, and they've talked about publishing it, the studio and the buyers, a lot of the best buyers, have figured out how to get their hands on a copy of it. And they'll then preemptively buy it, or sometimes the agents will, the agent will pretty much, like, for example, with my first novel, Dark Horse, it was we were trying to hold back the sale for a number of weeks, even though the publishing date was way, way, way out. And then, we got word that it had shown up at some studio. The manuscript had magically appeared. And it's like, oh, okay, let's just put it on the market now and let everyone have it. That way we could hopefully, auction it. And that's kind of what we did. Because, it's better to have a little leverage in the market with other people wanting to buy it. So, but yeah, if a publisher, a major one, at least, even the smaller ones. And by the way, the publishers all sneak that stuff out anyway. Publishers want desperately for a movie studio to buy your book. That is like printing money for them if that ever gets made into a movie. That is, so they're very happy to take that project they just bought and whisper in someone's ear in LA. And now it's just a file they send.
I will also say, I'm going to put this link. There's going to be a lot of links in this email. Doug, have I ever introduced you to Lane Schefter Bishop?
No.
Did you guys ever get to meet? Okay.
And if we did, and I just forgot, sorry, Lane.
No, I'm not sure. I remember seeing her once when I was out visiting you, and I couldn't remember if we were able to all get together, and I don't think so. So I did a one-on-one with Lane, just like I'm doing with Doug. And Lane is a writer, producer, director, but the CNN dubbed her the book whisperer. She has a great relationship with agents, literary agents, and she would come to New York. This is pre-COVID anyway. She would go to New York multiple times a year, meet up with the agents and say, what books do you have coming down the pike that you think would make great movies? And she would then actually work with the author to be like, I love this idea. I love this concept. Let me read it. And then she'd give them notes before it was even published so that she could help mold it to be the kind of book that was really cinematic and would make a great adaptation. Yeah. And then she would go pitch it. And so I will put a link to that because that one-on-one was really good. But there's people who are really great relations. It's not just the publishers. They've got good relationships with literary agents who have great stories coming. We've gone over a couple minutes. I'm trying to see if there's anything that we haven't really addressed.
It's going to have to be wound up nice and tight at 1 hour.
Yeah, it doesn't. Somebody asked, do you use the same manager or an agent for your books as your screenplays?
Well, no, because literary agents for novels are in the business of selling your book to a publisher, and literary agents and managers in Hollywood are in the business of selling your work and you to studios and such and buyers here. So those are two different worlds. Rarely do they meet. They do sometimes, not presently for me. There might be some big agencies out there that have, William Morris used to have the famous late Robert Gottlieb, who was my agent at one point as a literary agent. I was able to leverage my screenwriting business, into getting him to read my first book, so I moved my screenwriting business to William Morris so Robert would buy my book. And then he told me I should stay at CAA. But that's another story. Anyhow, it's really two different worlds.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to look at this. So, okay, I got to ask you this question, and this might be going down a big old rabbit hole, but
we love
AI. I know. Somebody asks about
AI.
And okay, so let me just, before you panic, before your head explodes, they're asking about it, your thoughts about it as a brainstorming partner.
Yeah, great.
There you go.
No rabbit hole. As a brainstorming partner, that's what it's for. That's not where it's going to go.
Yeah.
My thought about AI, as many of us in showbiz who get together talk about, is that, it was nice to have worked, when we did, before AI became. I have a really good friend who's a former president of a studio, and he sent me something the other day, just one of the most recent AI things, one of the image film generating things, and it was like, one of those OMG things. And we were both going back and forth. And I said, essentially, writers, actors, directors, they're going to be gone. All you need is someone to just input a few words into this program, and it'll spit out a movie, and you just continue to prompt it. And he says, yeah, that'll be the only job in film. It'll be a prompter, and then I joked that, it'll become a possessory credit, the best, the greatest, instead of like a film by Steven Spielberg, it'll be a prompt by someone like Steven Spielberg, because that's all that they'll be the best person at inputting questions into AI and getting out a commercial product.
That's terrifying.
It is. What do you say? I don't know where it goes.
I don't know.
It's terrifying. It is terrifying. And those happy bean counters who run the business can't wait to get rid of writers and everyone else. The fewer people they have to pay, the less, that they can get a product out. It's not going to take movies away. It's not going to take people making movies. I think movies will once again change with AI.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have the films that'll be and stories and whatever, they'll be generated by AI, and they'll be, a different language will, come forward that will be a non-AI language, and people will probably lean towards it because it's not AI. I'm gonna watch it. How they prove it's not AI, I don't know, but that's, I think, where it's gonna go.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up, but I want to just repeat
on that happy note.
But I'm gonna give you a little happy note that I want to wrap up because there were a couple questions about getting agents and managers, whatever. And I just want to remind people that I'm gonna stick the link to the panel with a manager and agent on it because I think it's a really good one and a really good conversation in depth. But they both agreed great logline is what's going to get their attention to make them request the script. So
definitely
really, really work on those loglines. And just coincidentally, Symposium, every quarter, we do a logline workshop. We just had one last week, so you missed that one, but we don't put that one out as an on-demand because people were actually live workshopping some people's loglines. And so we want to just keep it private. But Meredith Allen, who Doug has met on one of our other symposiums, does an amazing job workshopping loglines, but she also gives you all this great PDF slideshow that you can keep referring back to when you're creating your new logline. So loglines are important. And they also are a great way to break your own story, like make sure you've got a good logline to make sure.
I mean, you need one. I mean, it's kind of anti-storytelling to, but you need, I mean, that's how they buy. And that's how, it's the same thing as in novels, it's called a blurb, which is that blurb that goes on the back of the book when do I want to buy this up at the bookstore? And you look at the back and you read kind of a log line, but it's like 3 log lines. And then, and that's interesting. I'll buy it. It's the same thing, and it's necessary. But what's more than necessary, as great as your log line can be, the script's got to be better. Got to live up to it.
Yep. Amen. So thank you very much, Doug. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's anything. This symposium should just be called Anything for Jeannie.
Okay, let's not get crazy.
Okay.
Symposium is brought to you by Pipeline Artists, a division of Pipeline Media Group. To learn more about upcoming live symposiums, visit symposium.pipelineartists.com and follow us on Twitter @PipelineArtists.